Right, this is disconcerting, to say the least. South African prisons are being accused of using solitary confinement as torture. South Africa, torture. Can you believe that? Inmates are often locked up for almost 24 hours, 23 hours to be exact, with no interaction in inhumane conditions. This is according to a report by the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services. Let's find out more from Inspecting Judge Edwin Cameron. Judge, thank you for your time. So the word torture doesn't sit side by side comfortably with South Africa based on, a constitution that values human dignity, freedom and equality. Is it that bad for us to be using the word torture?
Thulasizwe, thank you very much for the opportunity to engage with you and eNCA's viewers. Let me give you a bit of background because I don't want to claim a soapbox here. We visited 3 correctional centres last year: eBongweni near Kokstad, CMAX in Pretoria Central, and Mangaung Max in Bloemfontein. And we found at all 3 that in certain sections there were practices applied that amounted to solitary confinement. Now, solitary confinement means when you keep someone locked up for 22 hours without meaningful contact. And there's no doubt that that is being applied in those 3 centres. It's a limited number of people to whom it's applied. I can't give you the exact figures. My guess off the top of my head right now as we are speaking is maybe 400 or 500 in total. I might have to revise that if I've got my mathematics wrong. I went to CMAX, I went to Mangaung Max. I was ill with COVID last May when my colleagues at JIX went to eBongweni. But we have concluded, and this is a long process, this isn't a shot from the hip, we have concluded that solitary confinement is being practiced at Pretoria CMAX in its isolation section. It is being practiced at eBongweni. And a second feature, Thulasizwe, that troubles us very much is how do you determine who has to go to eBongweni and to CMAX and who gets sent to the public-private partnership prison at Mangaung Max? And we are not convinced at all. We are deeply troubled that the criteria are not rigorously followed and that they aren't in fact clear at all.
Sure. So is it a matter, Judge Cameron, of the practice being out of kilter with policy, or is it a matter of the policy itself not measuring up to the standards that we want to uphold in South Africa, given perhaps the justification that correctional services officials can give for sending someone to solitary confinement?
Well, the statute makes it clear. The statute was revised. It was adopted in 2008. The new Correctional Services, forgive me, Thulasizwe, it was adopted in 1998. And a handful of years after that, about 5 or 6 years, it was revised to remove solitary confinement. So it's quite clear in response to your question that what is being practiced is against the statute, the Correctional Services Act of 1998. It's against the Constitution, which prohibits treatment of this kind in Section 35. It's also against international norms, which have embraced norms which are now called internationally the Nelson Mandela rules. So what is happening at the 3 places we saw is definitely unconstitutional, it's contra-statutory, and it's against international law. So you ask whether this is policy or practice. What the correctional officials told us is a combination of things. The one is that the single cells at these places are designed for single people. Well, that doesn't mean that you have to keep them there for 22, 23 hours a day, as we found. It means that you have to devise operational expedients to ensure that they get human contact, not just for 1 hour a day. We found that in Pretoria CMAX, for example, you give an exercise for 1 hour a day, but exercise in your own cage, cut off from everyone else. Now, we at JIX aren't naive bleeding hearts. We know that there are dangerous people. We accept that dangerous criminals sometimes must be confined and must be kept under rigorous operational conditions. But this does not preclude there being contact of some kind and sufficient contact. The circumstances that we saw at CMAX and that my colleagues saw at Ebongweni really were pitiful. And we sent our reports to Mr. Bulelani Magwanisha MP, the Honourable Magwanisha MP, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. We're not releasing the reports ourselves. That is up to the Portfolio Committee in Parliament to take that further step.
So that context really helps, Justice Cameron, because it explains when you talk about how it's out of kilter with the law, the statutes, as well as our Constitution. There can be no doubt then where the word torture came in. Unfortunately, Justice Cameron, I'm completely out of time. Thank you for engaging me briefly as it was. I do need to move on to a live event that's on the go. That's the inspecting judge for Correctional Services, Justice Edwin Cameron, there updating us on that concerning report that they've compiled around the use of solitary confinement in this country.